My name's Tom Palmer and I'm a children's author, and very soon I've got a new book coming out called After the War, and it was supposed to be published around now in May 2020, but because of things going on in the world it's been delayed a little till later this summer. But we thought, because it's VE Day, the 75th anniversary of VE Day, that I could read the first chapter because the book is set after the war. Anyway, I'm just going to read you the first chapter. And the background is, it's about a group of 3 children who are a group from a greater group of 300 children who come to England after the end of the Second World War as refugees because where they're living, they're not able to carry on living where they are. Even though he was afraid, Yossi forced himself to crawl to the window in the side of the aeroplane. There were no seats, so he had to crouch and stay on all fours as he and the other passengers were thrown about by the turbulence. Outside, he could see a wall of white and a wing wobbling so hard it looked like it might fall off. Behind him, Yossi heard children cry out and the sound of at least one person being sick, and some laughter too. "Come and sit down here, Yossi," a woman's voice called out. Yossi did as he was told, scrambling along the floor of the Sterling bomber to rejoin the other children and adults sitting on blankets. Yossi loved aeroplanes. He should have been scared of them, as the first time he'd seen one, 6 years ago, at the beginning of the war, a German bomber had tried to destroy his hometown in Poland. Then, over following years, he'd seen bombs falling from British and American aeroplanes, targeting the factories where he was forced to work. But he still loved them, perhaps because aeroplanes were a sign that change was coming. And once he was in the concentration camps, Yossi was desperate for change. He was fascinated also by these powerful machines. How could a huge piece of metal, with all these people on board, take off and then land without breaking into pieces? He glanced at the faces of the 2 boys closest to him. Didn't it worry them? The boys in question were Mordecai and Leo. Both were 15 years old like Yossi, and both seemed to be focusing hard on what they were doing, that they were barely aware they were bouncing around in the clouds. Mordecai, short with dark hair, was reading an English book. Yossi admired him so much because he could hold a conversation in German, Russian, Czech and Polish. He also admired Mordecai, that Mordecai could concentrate on reading even now as they hurtled towards the ground. Tall, blonde-haired Leo was busy too. For most of the flight, he'd been trying to get a spool of wire that was jammed down the side of the fuselage. Yossi knew that Leo would plan to use the wire or trade it with someone. He was always on the lookout for an opportunity. Now the plane lunged suddenly to the left and some of the children called out in fear. Yossi dragged himself to the window again to look out. Squinting in the bright light, he could see a range of mountains ahead, blue sparkling water beyond, and miles of green fields. They were out of the clouds, over England. This was the place where they had been told they would be safe, a place where there would be no German soldiers and no concentration camps. The only thing that Yossi knew about England was a distant memory of his father's bicycle. It was very special, so special, the tyres needed to be imported from another country. On the tyres, moulded into the rubber, were the words, "Made in England." "What can you see out of the window, Leo?" asked Yossi. "What does it look like?" "I see paradise," Yossi replied. "Tell us more," Talia said. Talia was a young Polish woman who had come to take the children from the concentration camp in Europe to England and refuge. Yossi understood why she was asking. Talia wanted him to reassure this group of children who had spent the last 6 years terrified of what would happen to them next. "It is beautiful," Yossi told the children, turning to smile at them. "There are fields and roads and small villages, just like back home in Poland." Yossi stopped speaking once he saw some of the children frown at the mention of their homeland. "But this is England," Yossi said quickly. "They're going to feed us. They're going to give us clothes. We'll be safe, won't we, Talia?" Talia nodded. "What if it's not like that?" Mordecai asked Yossi quietly, once they were sat together again. It will be like that, Mordy. But Yossi's words were lost as the plane's engines began to roar ever louder, and he felt a rush of fear. The aeroplane was about to land. Was England a nice place? Would it be safe? How do we know? Mordecai asked again, his voice tense. And this is the story of what happens to those 3 boys and the 297 others when they come from the concentration camps to live in the Lake District in England. As you can see on the cover, they spend their time by Lake Windermere, and it's about what happens to them over the next few months. Anyway, thank you for listening. This book will be published later this summer by Barrington Stoke. Their website is barringtonstoke.co.uk. I hope you enjoy reading it when you get to read it in the end. Thank you very much.